Hello, I'm Ina. Welcome to Know Thyself. I'm trying to get a few videos filmed during the weekend because I can't really do much during the week. I have a new job, so I'm still getting used to the pace, the rhythm of it. And that's kind of a huge step for me because I suffered from self-isolation and agoraphobia and mental health issues for a really long time now, so I haven't had a proper job that I commute to, at least, for a few years now. So this is a pretty big deal for me, and I'm still experiencing whiplash from this new job, from how intense it is for me, because I'm not used to this rhythm. And I thought I'd try and get, like I said, I just thought I'd try and get a few videos done when I'm actually able to, during the weekend. So I'm filming a few in a row, and I really wanted to do this tag by Lisa and Peggy. So yeah, there's quite a few videos going around. I'll link some of them below, some of the ones I've watched and liked. And yeah, I just wanted to participate. I just want to join in. So let's jump right in, because I don't want to have this video be an hour long. I'm gonna try and be brief with each prompt, but I can't make any promises. So let's jump in. So the first prompt is, what is the deck that I'll have to pry out of your cold, dead hands? And for this one, I wasn't sure how to answer, because I felt like you could interpret this question one of a few ways. So I wasn't sure if it was more of a case of if you could only rescue one deck from a fire, which one would it be? Or, in terms of maybe a prized collection piece that is difficult to get, overall favorites, workhorses, that sort of stuff. So I kind of meshed all these different options together, and I chose 3 decks. Yeah, I'm already failing at this because I'm guessing we're supposed to stick to one deck, but yeah, I can't do that. So yeah, I've got 3 decks that fit a few of those different categories that I mentioned. So first of all, I've got the medieval Scapini. Then I've got Oracle of the Radiant Sun. I'm gonna show these two together because I feel like they go together. So these 2 decks I feel like they are classics in the tarot tube community, but I see them, but I don't see them enough, and yeah, they're just massively underrated. I don't know, I don't know what to say about these because I've talked about them a lot. At least I've talked about them in other tags I've done. They're just so, this deck, for example, for me is a must-have because it's so versatile. It provides clarifications for any and all decks, really. It pairs well with a lot of decks, visually. Not all, but most decks that I have in my collection. So in terms of pairing it with decks, visually pairing it, I don't have an issue. So this is a go-to that I use in almost every reading. It gives me really great clarifiers so that I don't have to pull extra tarot cards. I'll pull one of these. I like the astrological associations. I like studying them, and I like tying those into my readings. And then the Scapini is just a work of art, and I love it. I it's just, it's so potent. It's funny. I need to use it more. Like, I feel like this should be a workhorse for me. But maybe because I really value it, I kind of treat it with, I kind of maybe baby it too much, and I don't bring it out as often as I'd like to. But yeah, this is a deck I don't really use for others that much either. So this is a deck I could have put in the category of like, I don't use this for other people, but it is a very personal deck. It's very magical. I haven't used it in spell work yet, but I feel like I will. The next time I do need like tarot cards for spell work, I will use the medieval Scapini. So I love the pips as well, the illustrated pips. It's just, it's a world in its own. It's a contained universe. And I know all tarot decks technically are contained universes, but this really does feel like it's alive. And this is just really useful. This is just so useful. It's so pragmatic. It's so pricey, and yet it's so useful. It's ridiculous. It's like a good all-rounder, right? So yeah, the medieval Scapini and the Radiant Sun, but also because again I said I chose 3, I couldn't pick just one because yeah, I can't do tags. I also chose the Nicoletta Ceccoli because again it's another deck that I feel is like, it's a classic. It's definitely has its fans, but I feel like it's also a very misunderstood deck, and to me it just speaks. Like, it has such a loud, clear voice for me, like no other deck has, and I love it for that. I love how scathing it can be, but I love how much information I can get from this deck just from the images and like tying in the tarot associations, of course, but I just get so much intuitively from these cards that it's just a great reader. Like, it's great for shadow work especially, but it's just a good all-round reader because its voice is so clear in my head. It's so like, it just cuts through the bullshit. With the Ace of Swords. I love this Hierophant card. It just cuts through the bullshit, it cuts through the noise. I use it so much. I use both this version and the mini version a lot, and it's just so useful. And like, you couldn't pry this out of my cold dead hands. So yeah, the Nicoletta Ceccoli. High Priestess. I love this High Priestess. Okay. Okay, prompt number 2. What's your guilty pleasure deck? The garbage Pail Kids tarot. Yeah. This is the definition of a guilty pleasure deck. I can't justify why I love this deck because again, it's like, it's not a fandom per se, but it's like a gimmicky deck. It's an Insight Editions deck. So, and I don't like Insight Editions, but this is like the exception to the rule. It just makes me feel, it's so it gives me such a specific vibe. I feel like this vibe gives me this and another deck that I don't think I'm going to show in this tag, but this and another deck I have give me this vibe of like, I live in the city, I'm a kid, and it's hot and sticky, and I'm just playing video games on an old console, and like a NES or something, or like Nintendo 64. I never actually had any of those. I didn't even have a GameCube. I think the oldest like console I had was a PS2. So yeah, but it just feels like it's hot, it's sticky, it's like sunset, like you know, the sun is setting and there's all these like gorgeous colors in the sky, and I'm playing video games and just feel really content and comfortable and safe, and that's this deck for me. I can't explain it. Why it evokes that for me, I don't know. I guess it's maybe the art style, perhaps. It's a really clever deck, and I'm honestly, I'm gonna stand by this deck. I'm gonna be its number one supporter and what's the word? Ambassador. Because I mean, this is probably not a great card to convince people to buy this deck, but because it is a gross deck, but it's just really clever. It's really witty, and it just makes me feel like a kid again. It's not an inner child deck, but although it could be, you know, I'd never considered that. It could be an inner child deck. I might actually use it as an inner child deck, but it just brings that vibe, that those associations to the here and now, and helps me relive those, like, you know, that part of my childhood. I don't know. It really is so evocative. And it just never ceases to impress me how clever this deck is. I've said that like a million times, but I'll say it again. I just like how the artist interpreted the tarot, how like well it meshes with the theme. It really works. It reminds me, like, this and the other deck I was talking about is the Dang Olsen Dream Tarot. These two decks go together, like they're like a pair for me. So if you've seen the Dang Olsen Dream Tarot, it's a similar vibe for me. I get a similar vibe. I love this King of Wands so much. It's crazy. And this Wheel of Fortune. Yeah. So I don't know, it's something about the colors. It's not like I'm a huge Garbage Pail Kids fan. I was aware of Garbage Pail Kids and was it Cabbage Patch Kids? Although they were a bit before my time, but I did know of them as a kid. But it's just like the feelings it evokes in me. It's not so much the actual like theme that interests me. It's more like what it gets out of me. So for me, this is like a huge guilty pleasure. Like, I love it, and I can't, like, visually I can't, aesthetically I can't really justify loving it, but it is what it is. So yeah. The Garbage Pail Kids Tarot. Number 3. What is the deck you wish existed? Moomin Tarot. A Moomin Tarot. That's what I wish existed. I know there's some Moomin playing cards. Yeah, a Moomin Tarot, I think. Also maybe Gilmore Girls. The problem with like fandom / TV series decks is that they're very hit or miss. Yeah, Moomin Tarot. maybe Gilmore Girls, and yeah. Okay, moving along, number 4. What deck would you give to a new reader? I hate to be predictable, but there is a reason this is a go-to, the Rider-Waite-Smith. And because there are so many like clones of the Rider-Waite-Smith, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the original Rider-Waite-Smith, it can be one of the many Rider-Waite-Smith clones or Rider-Waite-Smith style decks out there. But I would just suggest going with Old Reliable for a reason. It's just mostly to do with the number of resources that are out there in terms of, you know, reading tarot. Most of them are based on the Rider-Waite-Smith and the meanings and significations of the Rider-Waite-Smith. There are Thoth books as well, and Marseille books, but most of like the bulk of tarot books seem to be based on the Rider-Waite-Smith. So for learning, and in terms of learning, I feel like I would really just go back to, I would suggest the basics, right? The foundation blocks, the building blocks of tarot, of modern tarot. So the Rider-Waite-Smith in this case. This is the Vintage Rider-Waite-Smith by Los Garibay, I believe. This is the one I use mostly. Because I never really paid much attention to like the color associations, even though I know they are important. But for me, like the Rider-Waite-Smith is already so jam-packed with stuff I can like pick up on, and symbols and meanings I can pull from, I can rely on, that I don't need the colors. Although in the Thoth, I think the colors are elemental and essential to reading the Thoth, but in the Rider-Waite-Smith, I feel like it's a little bit more toned down, so I don't pay much attention to the colors, but maybe I should, I don't know. Because there are so many clones of the Rider-Waite-Smith, I feel like the colors is one thing that has gone probably lost in translation and has probably lost its significance over time. So that's why I like Rider-Waite-Smith clones. I don't necessarily like the colors of the original one. Like the strength card is so beautiful. Yeah, it just, the colors that are like more saturated in this deck really pop. So color-wise, it's not too different from a classic Rider-Waite-Smith. There's just a few color changes. This death card, well. But yeah, the Rider-Waite-Smith. We've all seen this, but that's where I'd go for beginners. Just very basic, very predictable, but you know, it's tried and true for a reason. Okay, so the next prompt is, I've lost count of where we are, I think number 5 or something. Yeah, I'm not good at keeping track of this. What deck do you want to get along with, but it just never clicked? For me, that's the Intuitive Night Goddess. I did actually do a reading with this deck on my channel a while back, and it read pretty well, and I used it a lot in the summer, but it just, I like it. I like it. I want to love it, but it just feels, sometimes it just feels a little flat for me. It just feels a little flat. Yeah, I guess that's my only issue with this deck. I don't know what it is. I really want to love this deck. And I've given it use. Like, it's not that I haven't tried to use it. I haven't tried to work with it for an extended period of time. So I, like, have gotten to know this deck. but like what I've discovered is that it doesn't, for me, it doesn't go beyond surface level. Like it is very Rider-Waite-Smith, but I don't get like deep impressions like I get from other decks with this deck. It feels very surface level to me. It is very, very beautiful. It's very pretty. But I don't know. So I am thinking of passing this deck along. Maybe. I don't know. It keeps going in and out of purgatory for me. But it is really good. It is really clever, but I just don't vibe with it. And I feel bad for not vibing with it, but I just can't. It doesn't click. So yeah, that's my deck that I just can't click with. Okay, next we have, what deck do you only keep for the art? I don't really keep any decks just for the art, per se. I try to use all my decks. If I'm not actively using any decks, then I usually pass them along, because it does kind of bother me to have decks in my collection that I don't use. But I think the closest I could get to having a deck that's just for the art, I did specifically buy these two decks for their art as collection pieces as well, but I did intend to use them, but I haven't used them much. One of them I got last year and I just haven't really found the opportunity to use it because it's a playing card deck, and the other one I got fairly recently, so it makes sense I wouldn't have used it a lot, but also it's quite big. It's quite chunky as well, so it's hard to shuffle. But I do really appreciate these two decks for the art mostly. So that would be the Cotta's Almanac playing cards, transformation playing cards, and the, I believe it's called the Gumppenberg, not sure how to pronounce that, the Gumppenberg Tarot. It's a Marseille, well, no, it's not a Marseille. Technically, it's more of an Italian tarot. Milanese, maybe, specifically, because it does say Milano on the back. So it is I guess it is close to a Marseille, but you know, if we're being really, really strict about what counts as a Marseille, then it's not a Marseille technically. But it is an Italian pit deck, and it's so beautiful. I did mostly get this deck for the art because I love the art so much. And this one as well. It's got a few landscape cards, and I just love the idea of transformation cards in general. And this deck, the colors, the actual carvings, like the prints, the what's it called, the line work, yeah. I don't know what to call it because I'm not really well versed in like old style decks, old world decks, although I wish I was. But the prints, the block print art or the line work, whatever, is just really exquisite, and the colors as well. I love how faded it is, maybe not faded, but like messy, and I like the messier Marseille decks, right? The ones where the colors are just kind of like slightly outside of the lines, Also, it looks, with these ones, it looks like the color was applied after the line work in some cases. So that's an interesting little detail. Yeah. It's just, these decks are so beautiful. And I wish I could use them more. I don't know, I'm really trying to get into playing card divination, like cartomancy. And then the day will come for this deck to shine. And in the case of this deck, it's just really kind of big and unwieldy. So that's why I don't use it as much, but it is a great reader and it's beautiful. I have no complaints about having this in my collection. So yeah, that is the Cotta's Almanac transformation playing cards and the Gumppenberg or the Gumppenberg Tarot. Okay, so the next prompt is, what deck did you buy because everyone else did? So I don't do that anymore, but I did at the start of my tarot collecting days, when I wasn't really sure yet what I liked in terms of what I wanted to use, what I actually wanted in my collection, what I liked aesthetically. I was still figuring that out. So I was going off a lot of like pick-a-pile type videos in terms of like researching or like finding out about different decks. So this deck showed up in a lot of those videos, and I thought, again, I didn't have as much of a limit as I do now, and I thought this would be a deck that I would use a lot and that would be useful to me because I saw it in so many pick-a-pile videos. It is the Work Your Light, and this is in my Purgatory box. Yeah, I don't use it. I wish I did, but it's so, I didn't realize when I bought it how star-seedy it was, and I've never been into starseed stuff, but it pains me because I do think this is a beautiful deck, even though it's very like 2012, 2011 Instagram aesthetics. Which is why I don't know if I could ever get the Moonchild or the Starchild. I don't know. But it is so beautiful that I keep going back and forth on whether I should get rid of this. I don't know. I don't like the star-seedy language. There's just so many cards I would just get rid of just based on the phrase, the phrases on the cards, but the artwork on its own is stunning. So maybe I should trim it and just read it intuitively. Maybe that would be like, I don't know. But then I don't know. But it is beautiful. It pains me that I don't click with this deck, but I did get this at a time when I wasn't as discerning with what I was bringing into my collection. So yeah. So yeah, that is the Work Your Light Oracle. What deck surprised you? For me, that would be the Buffy Tarot. So I'll try and be pretty brief on this one. Decks don't often surprise me because I I often have pretty high expectations for all of my decks, and they either meet those expectations or they don't. So it's rare that I'll have a deck surprise me, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, this deck surprised me because I wasn't expecting this deck to be good, and while it's not perfect, it's definitely a lot better than I expected it to be. So in that sense, it surprised me. I was definitely pleasantly surprised by the fact that this was a decent deck. It definitely still has its flaws, but you know, for a Buffy fandom deck, it's pretty decent. And I bought it kind of on a whim. I wasn't really planning on buying it because I did think it was going to be bad, and it wasn't. It was fine. It was good. Could be better, but you know, it's not, no deck is perfect, and this is pretty good as a Buffy deck goes. So yeah, this deck definitely, I mean, it surprised me a few times in a bad way, but yeah, it was mostly good surprises. So yeah, the Buffy deck. Next prompt. This flame is going crazy, and I don't know why. If any candle experts can explain, I always trim the wick before I light it, but it just goes completely wild, and I don't know why. So if any candle experts in the comments can explain why the flame is like always so tall and like, I don't know. Anyway, we have to get through the rest pretty quickly. So what deck doesn't really work for you but you keep as a collectible? I hope I got that right. For me, that would be the Flowers Tarot. It's not really a tarot, it's an oracle, and it's really out of print. I'm sorry. So that's kind of the main reason I keep it, because it you know, it was pricey, and I thought I was gonna really click with it, and I didn't. I mean, I can still give it a shot. I still try every now and again to click with it, but the keywords are very, like, they're oddly specific. They're very fortune tellery, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I've bought some more fortune tellery decks, but I can't seem to fit these particular keywords, these key phrases, into my readings. They don't really seem to mesh really well. I don't know, there's a lot of like quite negative keywords in this as well, which again, not necessarily an issue for me. It's just then, you know, you have stuff like manual profession, yeah, meetings, stuff that's a lot more fortune tellery. Illness. I mean, I wouldn't want to get that card, right? That would stress me out a lot. So yeah, it's one of the reasons I don't use this that much, but I do keep it for collection's sake. I wouldn't get rid of this ever, I don't think. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, The Flowers Tarot by Grimoire, I believe. So, what deck is your favorite gilded deck? For me, this is a newcomer in my collection, and I'm already like head over heels with it. And I was considering putting this deck in the the first category of like, you couldn't pry this out of my cold dead hands. But maybe it's too soon. I don't know. It's, God, it's amazing. Can't praise it enough. It's the Splendor Solis tarot. I'm not sure if I got that right. If it's not called that, I'll pop it up on the screen. I'll pop the name up on the screen. So I don't know if I've said this before, but I don't really like gilded decks, like the gold, the really like blingy gold gilding. I don't like that too much. It doesn't bother me on some decks, but I feel like the gold gilding situation is excessive. I feel like way too many decks have it. And it just doesn't fit every deck. So for some decks, it's fine. It fits the theme, or it fits the aesthetic, or it just meshes really well with the arts, like with the cardstock or whatever. But I feel like in most cases it's just not necessary, and I'd prefer like an ungilded deck, so I could, I can edge it myself, or a gilding that isn't gold. Maybe I'm just sick of the gold gilding. And this has matte gold gilding, which I think I only have one other deck that has that, but it's such beautiful gilding. It's not shiny at all. It has like, it's a bit glittery, but it has like gold embossed details as well, so that makes it extra special, and it makes the cardstock's really thick. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite gilding wise. Again, like I said, I don't like gilding, so yeah. But this is just like, maybe overall it's one of my favorite decks right now. And the cards, it has like the rose, which again, it can be troublesome. The rose petal finish cardstock can be really troublesome, but I don't mind it on this deck at all, because I think it makes it like stunning. It makes it beautiful. It's such an amazing deck. Yeah, I really need to make a video on this deck. I want to make a series on this deck, actually, because it requires a series, because it does touch on, it is an alchemical tarot and also a Kabbalistic one, as you can probably see. So I definitely want to make a series on this. I might incorporate it into the Deacon Walk. Deacon Walk, I can't remember how I pronounce that. But yeah. Anyway, I've spent long enough on this one. I love it so much. So for the gilded deck, I chose the okay, I'm not even gonna try and say it. I'll just pop it up on the screen. The next prompt is, what deck do you love but hate the cardstock? The Sybils Oraculum. I'm not even gonna say anything for this one. I'm just gonna show you, okay? So I hate that I have to do this to show it, to prove my point, but yeah. I mean, I can bend it back. I guess at least the fact that it's like pliable, if that's the word, I don't know, whoops, makes it so that I can bend it back into shape, but I can't shuffle it. That's the problem. And I love this deck, and I don't get to use it as much because I can't like riffle shuffle it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It just doesn't, maybe not riffle shuffle it, maybe bridge shuffle. Okay, yeah, I can't bridge shuffle it. I'm trying, I'm really trying, and it's not. but like it's really like slippery. I'm not a cardstock snob, so there are I don't really care. I don't really give a shit, to be honest. So I do actually have some decks in my collection that are on the lower end in terms of cardstock. Like, the cardstock isn't really that nice, or it's downright unusable, but this is maybe the most unusable. Maybe, no, bar maybe one other deck that I have. This is just almost unusable. So I can only, like, I don't know, it's really hard to shuffle. It's not good. And I don't know if any other decks have this cardstock. Like, something that is just so, it's not because it's thin, I think it's because it's like laminated in a very particular way. So, you know. But yeah, this, let me show off some cards. This is a really, I really love the keywords on this, and there is a whole system to this, although I don't really use it much. I should, maybe, because it's a really good system, but I just like using it as an oracle. And the book is really, really good for shadow work. So I'd really recommend this, maybe just for the book. It's pretty affordable, but the book is like, the book is incredible, and yeah. So that's my shitty cardstock choice. Okay, this candle is stressing me out, so I'm gonna blow it out. Okay. Again, if anyone can tell me, explain why this happens. Is it because of the glass container it's in? I don't know. I've never seen that, a flame so intense with any of my candles. Anyway, next prompt is, what deck gives you the willies? I don't have a deck that gives me the willies. I don't have a deck that scares me, really, or gives me like that kind of feeling in my gut. I guess there is a deck that exists that gives me the willies, but I don't have it. It's the Occult Tarot. But it is on my wish list, so I don't know, I feel like I'm going against my better judgment if I buy it. But that does lead me into the next prompt, and that is, what deck do you like using for shadow work, or something along those lines? I'm not even looking at my notes, guys. Okay. So that would be the Hayworth Tarot. And I think some people do get scared by this. It's a bit, what's the word? I mean, I guess it's gory in a not very kind of bloody sort of way. It's very, visceral. Is that the word? I mean, it's literally visceral. You see viscera in this deck. And the thing about this deck for shadow work is that it always shows me like, it shows me like the shadow side of each card. So I don't really have to think about it too much. I can just look at the image and it already gives me a kind of more like a shadowy interpretation of each tarot card. So, or, you know, definitely a strange interpretation of each tarot card. I love this Nine of Pentacles. But yeah, some people do find this creepy, so I'm kind of including this in both categories. I mean, definitely this Queen of Swords, for real. For real. I love it though, I love it so much. I love the interpretations this deck gives me. Because I don't know, it's really good as a shadow work deck. It's really God, I can't even find the words now. It really works. Let's just leave it at that. It really works as a shadow work deck. So yeah. Okay. What deck do you love in theory but not in practice? That for me would be the Archeo deck. So the reason this doesn't work for me, no, I shouldn't say it doesn't work for me. It does, but it doesn't work for its intended purpose. I think it's, or does it? I mean, it does. It does. I'm just being maybe too picky. Maybe. Like, the thing is that these archetypes that come with the deck, it's not that they're not universal enough, it's just that some of them are maybe too specific or too like esoteric to really work as a general archetype deck, if that makes any sense. But I like it, I love it. I think for path working, astral work especially, maybe even using these entities, like these archetypes as egregores or thought forms, that would be a pretty cool, useful practice, like a really good use for this deck. But as an archetype deck, I don't know if I like the archetypes that are included in this deck for an archetype deck. I think I just need another archetype deck. And I just prefer, like, I don't know if I can read this as an oracle. It's kind of difficult for me. I mostly use it for like other type of work. So at least as an archetype oracle, it doesn't really do it for me. You might recognize this because it is my banner, my YouTube banner. But yeah, I do love it. I do. It's quite esoteric. I don't see this like nearly enough on TarotTube, like at all. I might have seen it at some point, but yeah, I'd like to see this more. But again, maybe it's just too specific. Maybe it's like too niche. So what deck would you never use to read for someone else? The Klimt Tarot. This deck knows my purgatory box. It's often an honored guest in it. Yeah, it's mostly because I have a difficult relationship with this deck and it's so personal, and I got it quite early on in my practice that it's not that I don't know if I have read for other people with this. I don't think so, but I just can't bring myself to. And also, like, the one thing about this, besides the nudity, which isn't, I mean, that isn't an issue for me at all, but I know for some people it is an issue, it bothers them. So I think that's one barrier to, or like one reason not to use it for other people. But it's not really just the nudity, it's the fact that like all the figures, all the people in this deck are quite emaciated. So it might trigger some people or make people feel uncomfortable, and I want to avoid that. So yeah, and also it's the reason I have so many problems with this deck is because it's got a really I don't know if I can say it's harsh. Okay, I'm not going to say anymore because this deck does appear in another prompt, but it just I don't want people to basically come away from a reading feeling offended because I use this deck, because it has quite the sharp tongue. Let me just put it that way. But yeah, the Klimt Tarot. So what deck would you never use for yourself? I have actually used this deck for myself, but I didn't really buy it with the intention of using it for myself. I bought it for the intention of using it for other people and, you know, readings for other people. So it is mostly a deck I use for other people, and it's the Animal Apothecary. So there's no real reason for why I don't use this deck. It's more of like an affirmation deck with some oracle elements mixed in. What I consider an oracle is anything that kind of has divinatory meanings as well, not just like affirming messages. If it just has like affirmations, then for me it's like an affirmation deck. It's not an oracle deck. Does that make sense? Although I guess I would have to rethink a lot of oracle decks in my collection if that's what I truly believe. I don't have a lot of affirmation decks. That's the thing. No, I mean, I take it back. This is definitely an oracle deck, but it's mostly just like, it's just mostly like affirming messages. I like it aesthetically. It's not my aesthetic, but I do like it aesthetically. Yeah. I just think it reads really well for other people, but it doesn't really interest me much, like for my own personal work. I don't know, maybe that will change someday, but for now I like to use this for other people. So that's the Animal Apothecary. I think I missed this one, but I don't know where it fits in the list of prompts, so I'm gonna slip it in wherever it's supposed to go. I think the prompt is, what deck goes over your head, or something like that. I really should have my notes beside me, but it's the Philosopher's Tarot. This is a pretty gimmicky deck, honestly. But the reason I say it goes over my head is because it does actually incorporate core philosophies and philosophical arguments, philosophical figures, historical figures in this deck that does actually influence the meaning of the card, or like it's supposed to. I don't know, it goes over my head because I'm not a philosopher. There's a lot of stuff I don't recognize in here. There is some stuff I recognize but still don't know that much about. So I think it's a cool deck. Like, what this to me just says nothing. Like, I know what the Eight of Swords means, but I feel like this deck is supposed to be read in a way where you definitely incorporate these philosophical arguments into the actual card meaning. Because I did read the guidebook and it definitely seems to slant that way. So this, like, Mary's Room, I have no idea what that is or what it means. But I mean, I recognize most of the figures, like Rosa Luxemburg. So there's a bit of like political philosophy in this as well. Yeah. But I mean, it's a gimmicky deck. Yeah, I don't know what else. It does just go over my head a bit. I feel like you need to be really well read to get the most out of this deck. Because again, you could just read it like a Rider-Waite-Smith because that's what it is, but then there's like no point in this deck being what it is. Getting the most out of, like, I think this makes this is a really interesting, I think this would be a really interesting deck for like political readings, which I don't think I've really dabbled in, but I think that would make an interesting, that would make for an interesting like type of reading. I don't know. But yeah, the Philosopher's Tarot. Next we have, what deck could you not bring yourself to buy? This one's gonna take a second. I'm not gonna elaborate. the lights ears. It's just not my thing. So yeah. Next, what is your favorite pip deck? For me, that has to be the Vachetta or Vagetta Tarot. Tower of the Master, it's called, by Lo Scarabeo. I trimmed the borders off mine because I had like these green borders on it that were pretty unsightly. And yeah, I do want to get another edition that is like, I'd like to get the Il Meneghello edition, preferably, but I know Lo Scarabeo has another edition that is just like in black and white. It's just the original drawings that aren't coloured in. And I think I prefer that version. Not that I don't love this version, I do, because I love the colour palette. Oh, and it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And these are slightly illustrated pips, so it's not super pippish. It does go its own way. This is probably one of my favorite cards, the 10 of Wands. Yeah. But I love this deck so much. It's stunning, and yeah, I really love what it does with the pips. This one's confusing because it's actually the Ace of Pentacles or the Ace of Coins. But it looks like it'd be the 3, right? But it's actually the Ace. This is confusing, but yeah. So the Tower of the Master, or the Vachetta or Vachetta, however you call it, that's my favorite pip deck. What deck slaps you with the truth? So I've already featured these 2 decks. The Nicoletta Ceccoli and the Klimt. Yeah, these 2 for sure. I don't really use this one much anymore because, like I said, it's in my purgatory box. But let me flip to another. I don't know. I don't know how they'd read together. Actually, might be interesting to see how they'd pair together. Yeah. But these are a slap in the face. And that's why I love them. That's why I love this one, and that's why I hate this one. I don't hate. Hate is a strong word. I highly dislike this one. But again, that's one of the main reasons I love the Ceccoli. Yeah. It's just, they're both really intense. This one's really intense. This one is more like, wake up, bitch. And this one's more like brooding. It's a very Scorpio deck, I think. It feels like a very Scorpio deck anyway. Oh, I like that. Okay, yeah, so these are my 2 rudest decks. And finally, what's the deck that got away? The Spirit Keepers. It's still on my wish list if I ever get to have it one day. I was even on the mailing list for it for the last edition, and I just completely spaced out and forgot to order it. So I could have gotten it. It's not like it was beyond the realm of possibility, but I didn't get it. And it literally got away from me. So yeah. Okay, that's it. Oh my god, I really hope this isn't an hour long. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. Comment down below what are some of your picks for these prompts if you haven't done the video already. Yeah, like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye.